This is a sunflower from my deck, and I thought this is a great day. It's rainy, it's cold outside, so let's do a little practice. So I'm going to talk about sketchbook practices. Not everything an artist does has to be ready for an exhibit. It shows here the colors that I used. I started with a limited palette, so titanium white, yellow ochre, quin red, cobalt turquoise, but then I changed it. I gessoed my sketchbook paper beforehand, and I did that just to prepare the surface. With acrylic, you don't really need to do that, but it gives you a nice surface to work on. I don't draw with a pencil. And the reason I don't do that is I want this to be a painting. I don't want it to be a paint by number. And sometimes with a pencil, you commit to a line, and then you have an issue about releasing it. And a lot of painting is about that finding your way in the painting and finding the shape. That's what keeps it fresh. And so you'll notice that these colors, I'm graying is out right now. So by mixing those three colors with white, I get this really nice grayed down color, which that's going to be quite lovely. I'm setting in the negative shapes here. So that means that I'm painting the shapes around the object. And that's an important in a composition, because what happens, that strengthens the design and it helps you focus in on the subject matter. So you pay attention to those different shapes. And the next thing that I'm doing, and that helped too, to set in the background color. Color never acts by itself. Color always looks different when it's set next to other colors. So by setting in that background and doing those negative shapes, what happens is that you give yourself an advantage, because then when you're mixing and adding the colors, they're going to be looking great. It also gives you a chance to soften edges. And in acrylic, that's something that we always have to think of. I know I have oil painter friends, and they think, oh yeah, you can't paint with soft edges in acrylic. And of course you can. You just have to think about it in a different way. So I'm developing this color now. I'm using ochre and adding the quin red to it. Get these beautiful, rich, sort of orangey colors to it. And I'm just developing the shadow areas of the flower first, and then adding white to the ochre and developing some of that brighter stuff. I'm using really thick paint throughout this. There's advantages to doing this, a couple of them. One is that the paint will dry in less time if you use a thicker passage, and you also have more pigment in the passage. And so what that does is it allows you those wonderful bright colors that we can get with acrylics. There's times that you're going to be editing this. I just didn't like the way that looked. As I'm doing this painting, I'm staring at the setup that I have on the other side. You can't see that, but it's something that as I'm going, I'm modifying and changing things. Don't hold so tight to the image. Sometimes you're doing something, you go, oh, it's not quite right. It's acrylic. So you can just do something like take a palette knife and just scrape it off. And then you come back in and reset the edges. As I'm resetting those edges and repainting that, I'm not painting on the same lines. I'm sort of offsetting them a little bit. And again, that gives me an energy to the painting and a softness. This is slowed down so that you're watching this part of the painting in real time. And so, I'm a messy painter. It's just how I paint, how I like to express myself. But as I'm doing it, I'm being thoughtful. So I'm looking at the subject matter, sitting there staring at that sunflower just off screen, and then taking the brush and making very deliberate marks as I go along. As I'm making those marks, I'm thinking about value and chroma as well. And at this point, in the painting, I thought, I need to put in some of those darker areas. It's sped up again so you can see. At this point, I decided, I made a decision to check the range of values. And I thought, I want something more dramatic. Now, not all paintings have to have that full chroma range. And sometimes it depends what you want to say with the painting. You might want to change that. You'll notice on some of this, I'm resetting some of those edges, bringing in some medium sometimes to soften things, and other times just going on with full thick paint. Um, as you're doing this painting, the whole time I'm assessing and looking and deciding different things. So you'll notice I threw in that red because I thought, well, that's a bit boring. What happens if we throw that in? I reset how the stem was because I didn't like how it was. And as you look more and more at your subject matter, there's things that you probably have missed, and so you can come back. There's purple in the middle there. I put that because I actually did see a hint of that in the flower. And purple's a good color to add as well for color contrast against the yellow. Again, I scraped it off again, came back in with some of those stronger colors, reset some of those areas, and it's just a continual thing. It doesn't have to be done in all one go. I like to layer my work. I find it gives me a much more interesting surface when I do that. So even in these little quick sketches, I like to practice that and try that out. So as we're doing this, I need to throw in some of the lighter chroma. I lost some of that purple, so there's some areas that I want to restate that I thought that I had lost the intention of. And now it's the final little ideas of the painting. You want to keep it fresh. I don't want to overwork this. I like the fact that it kind of looks like an explosion. And we're just going to slow this down here and show you the final little areas. This is just meant to be a study or a sketch. Doesn't have to be finished. I have that sense in my paintings that I like them when they are a little bit like this, when they're unfinished and they're kind of approaching the abstract. To me, that's much more exciting. So the last few little marks and, looking at the different colors in chroma and just putting in, there's a little highlight there that I had missed that I wanted to pull in. So I'm going to pull that in just at the end. And, coming to the end of this little sketch on this page. So the whole thing, it's sped up. So when you're looking at it, I can kind of make my point without losing you as my audience. But it probably took me about an hour to do. There's times where I'll limit it and I'll try to do it just in half an hour. So we're coming to these final little splashes of light and ways to move the eye around throughout the painting. And just final some mark making there. And then we'll think that's it. I think we'll call it quits. So I hope you enjoyed this little demo today, and just a reminder that it's just practice. So you're going to make another one. I often use these before I start my main big studio works. Hope you enjoyed it.